You're listening to the UpRev Ninja Podcast with your host, Tom Hudson, and this is episode number 45.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the UpRev Ninja Podcast. If this is your first time listening, thanks for joining us. This show is produced each week with the single intent of discovering the tips, tricks, hacks, and lessons learned from our guests that has catapulted them into living the best version of themselves. Join your host, Tom Hudson, as he continues his search for the best methods to UpRev his life. Now, let's dive into the show.
Today I've got Erik Seversen joining me. Erik is a writer, speaker, adventurer, entrepreneur, educator, and a lover of life who refused to let others tell him what he could and could not do. He continually worked towards his goals, even when others said they were unreasonable. He travels have taken him to over 80 countries around the world and 49 of the 50 states in the USA, and he has achieved success in business and in life. His most current ambitions are growing 2 businesses and climbing mountains, which he says makes everyday challenges seem a lot easier. Hey, today on the UpRev Ninja Podcast, I've got Erik. How you doing today, Erik?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Tom?
I'm doing fantastic. You know, that little technical challenge there a few minutes ago can be frustrating, but it's happened a time or two, so I'm glad I have a backup procedure.
Well, you know what? A man with a plan, with a backup plan, even in place, is perfect.
Yeah, it's happened once where I didn't, and that was many years ago. So, well, your freaking biography, dude, it's like I'm a mini-me version of you, I feel like. I've done a lot of the things that you've done, but you take it to a whole nother level, Erik. And, yeah, I've already read that bio out to my audience, but I would love for you to just tell us who you are and how you got to this point where you're at in life.
Well, it's been a great journey so far, and it wasn't always easy. I've had my ups and downs, like everybody. And it kind of all starts to go to the beginning from a very average kid with a cowlick and not very good at math and not very good at spelling, and trying to figure out that and make friends. And with the decision to, do I walk to school or do I take the bus? It was about a mile and a half maybe from that. Just an average kid in an average middle-class area in a suburb of Tacoma, Washington. But I did feel that there was something big. I wanted to do big things, and I wanted to be, Bruce Lee for a while. Yeah, so That was awesome. Yeah, ninja, there we go. I love the ninja connection there.
Yeah, I was definitely down that road myself, but go on.
And it wanted to be a cowboy, wanted to be a biker, wanted to be a fireman, and all these things. And I've been able to touch a lot of them. So the main thing that happened is I grew up in this average family. Things didn't come easy. I had to study a little harder I didn't study until 11th grade, by the way. And that was a mistake. Something really clicked in the 11th grade. And all of a sudden I decided I want to be a college professor. And I went from getting, a C- average to straight A's. My smart kids friends that were in the AP classes were discussing their Of Mice and Men books with me because I was devouring them, passionate because I missed so much. Then I applied to UCLA. That was my goal. And they promptly rejected me. And
oh, no.
Yeah. So that was a kind of a big upset. My whole plan, my life I had in my 11th grade, when I had that plan set in place, I thought everything's golden now. I'm engaged. I'm turned on. UCLA rejected me. So like we had to do with the technology today, I had to go to plan B. I went to a JC for 2 years, ended up getting into UCLA later. And even before that happened, my wanting to see things, wanting to be Ernest Hemingway in Africa, led me to Africa. I literally read a book I think it was my senior year, called Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. And then I was looking at what we were looking at in our history class, and I'm like, you know what? This doesn't seem at all the same. So I decided to go to Africa. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I'm barely 19 years old at the time. I've got no more money than the next lower middle class family does. So I mowed lawns passionately and raised enough money by mowing lawns to support myself to Africa, to go to Africa.
Okay.
So I'm 20 years old. I hitchhiked from London to Zaire. And it's funny to go back to my notes sometimes. And I kind of wrote down where I stayed every night. And I say, runaway shelter in London, train station and so. And so I did it. So I made it to Africa. And I'm going to return to that piece in just a minute. Kept opening doors. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, go on.
And so even things that made me nervous, I kept opening doors. At the community college that I mentioned, there was a position in Japan. They were going to open an English-speaking community college in Japan in a place called Kanema. They were hiring a student to go over there as a student program specialist. I was hired. I got 4 months of training, went to Japan. So that was another experience. Got to UCLA, studied anthropology, which was great. Ended up going on for my master's in anthropology at University of Virginia. In the times I lived in France for a while, I lived, in Thailand for a while and Alaska for a while, kind of all over. But I love vagabonds, by the way, but I wasn't just vagabonding without a goal. Every place I went, I wanted to learn something interesting, and I think I did. I wanted to go to Thailand for one sole purpose, which is to fight Muay Thai out there. I was, like I said, I wanted to be Bruce Lee, so I started martial arts. I thought I was pretty good in the States, and I went to Thailand to test myself, and the test proved that I wasn't nearly as good as I thought I was.
Okay.
So I thought I was going to stay for 2 years, but I knew I wouldn't make any money boxing, so I got certified to teach English as a second language. I taught there, boxed there. The teaching went great. The boxing was horrible. I didn't even come close to winning a fight in Thailand. They taught me really well. Came back to the States and I taught ESL at various universities. Couldn't support a family in Los Angeles. That's where I am now.
Okay.
With my salary teaching. So I went into business, got onto a company and worked with them for 10 years. And they grew from 7 million to 100 million while I was there. Went from a small company to a pretty big deal. And I decided I need to get back into really making a difference like I wouldn't. So I created a company called Language Link. And the idea of the company is to teach business motivational strategies, everything from Brendan Bouchard to, Tony Robbins to Napoleon Hill, Dale Carnegie, all these things that are thrown around in business that I didn't see being thrown around in the educational circles. So I decided I want to focus on that. So I teach strategies to ESL students, English as a second language students, how to succeed in English without focusing on the English, because they've got more English in their head than they know.
Right.
I also still work at that company as I do international business development and marketing for them. And I kind of balance between the two a little bit. And so I've been in LA for this stretch, 17 years with my wife and 2 little kids. And yeah, so that's it. And I kind of want to touch upon something that happened to me in Africa during that trip from London to Zaire, which is now the Democratic Republic of Congo. So one of the early life-changing moments for me was I'm going from Benin into Nigeria, and I've been traveling by myself. So I was just 20 years old. I turned 20 in May, and this is September. And I'm going into Nigeria. I'm in a shared taxi of 5 people and a driver with me stuffed in there as well. We've been in there for about an hour before we hit the border. The border was one of the most frightening experiences up to that point in my life. It was just, dirt everywhere, people telling me to go here and there. And in the end, $50. I had $200 total with me. I was spending less than $50 a month. They stole $50 from me at the border crossing.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I had multiple people, all officials, getting bribes and things. And it was a miserable experience. The people in the shared taxi had to wait for the hour plus that it took me to get through the customs when they just walked through. Finally, I get back into the shared. 50 yards later, there's a checkpoint. Walk up. They see me in the car, and they were all African. I'm not. Right. Get out of the car. They search all my stuff. Another half mile down the road, another checkpoint. This is going on for hours now.
Yeah. So
the cab driver decided enough's enough. We start approaching one of the checkpoints, and I could hear them start fighting amongst themselves in an African language. It was a Bantu language. I didn't understand what they were saying, but it was a very heated fight in this cab between 6 passengers. And as he approached the checkpoint, he gunned it. He tried to bust by it.
Oh, man.
So one guy up ahead of us ran out and threw a spiked 2x4 across the road. Guy behind us shot his rifle in the air 3 times and then starts running towards us with his rifle pointed at us. Now it wasn't even a polite, hey, let's search your stuff because you're not like everybody else here. It was gun in the face, ripped me out of the cab, dragged me into a hut. And so he sticks this gun in my face. And I'm 20 years old sitting here wondering what's going to happen. And he at one point put the machine gun inside my mouth. And as I say it, I can taste the gunpowder of the mouth, the metal in the gunpowder. I can taste it as I live this. So, and he's yelling at me that I'm a spy.
Oh, man.
Yeah. and been speaking French, not well, but very poorly French for the last month because I was in North and West Africa. And now I'm in Nigeria where English is the first language, and his pidgin English, I couldn't very well understand it. So I'm just in my shock answering him with what I'm speaking. So that didn't help things. And so really thought that it wasn't like my life was flashing before my eyes, but it was like I was just absolutely paralyzed and wondering what's going to happen next. After about an hour, he finally decided that he likes Americans because they give him gifts. And yeah. And so my pack had already been torn apart and it's laying around this hut in front of me. And he picked up my tent and my hunting knife and he stuck it in front of me. And obviously I had a choice of keeping one and he's going to keep the other. So I picked up my hunting knife. He took my tent, pack up my things. And I'm at this point at a pretty beat down place in life that I hadn't experienced before.
Yeah.
Anxiousness, nausea from the stress. I finally get my stuff packed up, get back into the car. We start driving away. And then I hear him yelling at us as he's running towards us again. And I have to go back and help him set up the tent to show him how to use it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So the worst day of my life isn't quite as bad as it's going to get yet. Then we drive. Luckily, there were no more checkpoints. We get into Lagos. And it was a really frightening sight. Really, as we were getting close to the taxi park, which is basically a big muddy area and taxis, we get in there and I'm just nervous as anything, wondering what I'm going to do next. I'm beaten down, like I said. We get out of the cab. People are walking away. The cab driver walks to the back of the cab where my pack is, and he's holding his keys intentionally, and he says, "Give me 30,000 CFA, which is Central African francs, about $15." And I just reached in my pocket, looked desperately at my hand, and I had about half that much, and I just pushed it his direction and didn't know what to do. He opened the thing, giving me my pack. So I'm standing in this pretty gnarly scene of a, afternoon taxi park. People doing their things, not in my happy place. One of the guys from the car, this is where it starts to get good. One of the guys from the car walks back to me. He's wearing a silver suit, totally like a cheap silver suit, wrinkled as anything because we've been in the car for 6 hours together.
Right.
He walks up to me and he says, "What are you going to do now?" And he evidently saw what had just happened. And I said, "I'm going to go to the bank, exchange some money, and get out of Lagos as quickly as I can." And He just shook his head and he said, "Today's Sunday. The banks are closed. If I don't take you home with me, you'll be dead before morning."
Oh my God.
Yeah. And he explained that he hadn't seen his family in over 5 years. He'd been out of the country. He's returning home to see his family for the first time in 5 years. So I just thanked him and kind of walked numbly next to him. And we started walking into these shanty areas, not too far away from the taxi park. Then he had an idea to not take me to his house, but he explained that he had a friend whom he also hadn't seen for 5 years. He knocks on this friend's door, explains the situation, and basically says, "Hey, can this guy from America stay with you? I just met him in the cab today." And his friend welcomed me in. And in the end, I spent 3 days with this man and his family and his 3 kids. And it was 3 of the best days I had of my whole entire time in Africa. So this tragic experience turned into this beautiful time with this family, front seats into what life in Lagos is like. And this was the start of my favorite motto, which is things work out. That's my favorite motto. And this was an example of it. That horrible situation caused me to meet this man and have 3 of the best days of my life, 3 of my best days in Africa. And so it ended up to be beautiful. And I keep that with me today.
Wow. All right. So yeah, that's pretty intense. And I can't imagine. And you were 20 years old. So, I mean, that has had to flavor just the way you live life to this day. And I know part of your bio talks about, some of the mountaineering that you do. And, but yeah, I don't want to take that path just yet, but what kind of holds you back nowadays?
From being who I can be?
Yeah.
You know what? It's interesting. You mentioned the correlation between that experience and my life. One thing that has happened is sometimes if I'm in a tense business situation and we're sitting around a table trying to negotiate something and that blood pressure just starts to rise, sometimes I get to that point when I'm kind of really nervous about what's going to come next. And all of a sudden, this wave of relaxation follows me. It's almost like I return to that moment and I realize this is nothing. We're in an air-conditioned room. This is nothing. So that's come back time and time again where I've relaxed in tense situations, partially because of that. What's holding me back now is kind of funny. It's like, I don't know if you've heard about like the raccoon traps that raccoon hunters used to do in the South, where they'd bore a little hole in a wood, like a log that's laying flat on the ground.
Yeah.
They would put a little shiny thing in the bottom of it, and they'd put a few nails on the side of the little drilled out hole. And evidently, I've never tested if it's true or not, but the raccoon will reach in, grab a shiny thing, and he will try and pull his hand out, but his hand's stuck now because he's got a fist.
Yeah.
And that they won't let go of the shiny thing, and they're stuck. So they're stuck. That's what I do sometimes. I mentioned, that company I've been with that has grown so well, and I really, really enjoy this company. I do know that absolutely branching off on my own, I could soar even higher. However, it's so hard to let go of the shiny thing that I find myself not doing it.
Yeah, okay. And I think a lot of people get into that just because of either, it's job security or fear, or, there's the other parable, right? Grass is always greener. Not always. So, yeah, it's definitely. So, what are you doing about that? What are you trying to do to get past that? Or are you? I mean, you don't have to. That's the other path. You don't have to.
Oh, I believe in absolute continued growth. One of the things I think is kind of funny is I don't think I have enough time in life, even if I live, to learn everything I want to learn. And just, recently, actually, there was a pretty big shift where I decided that I do want to actively pursue some of the things like that. So I started surrounding myself with coaches from, David Brownlee is one that I know. I used to ride motorcycles with him, and he's a public speaker and a personal coach. And there's Adam Flores, who's a local guy down in San Diego. And then there's Brendan Bouchard. So I'm reading everything, Napoleon Hill stuff. I'm revisiting a lot of these things. And I actually recently took an NLP, neuro-linguistic programming seminar, 4 days, and I'm currently doing 135-hour coursework to actually get certified in it. And so I want to look at everything through new perspectives, and that's one of the ways I'm doing it.
Yeah, that's great. And like I said, I think you and I have been on a somewhat of a similar path. I don't have all the stories that you've got, but so that's really cool.
One story that I heard in one of your prior podcasts was how you were fired, laid off, whatever you want to call it, from a job, and 3 hours later, you've landed something
tripled my salary.
Things work out.
Yeah. So, and I was, how old was I? I was 23, 24 at that time, I think. So, yeah, but I tripled my income in 3 hours.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and 6 months later, I ended up selling that business for a good chunk of change. So, yeah. But, .com, it was 99 and 2000 when that happened. So, but, so I guess, so I was going to ask you, what are you doing now in regards to trying to always be the best version of yourself? And you talked on, NLP, you talked about surrounding yourself with coaches. What kind of habits do you have at home? What do you, or home or on the road or whatever? What kind of habits do you have to make sure you're not falling behind and just becoming content, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. And that's a great word. It's so easy. I actually went through a period of probably 3 years where I was numbing myself a little bit, drinking a little bit too much, and just being content. I had enough money to pay the bills. I had 2 kids that were awesome. And then all of a sudden I just kind of woke up and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? So I consciously broke myself out of that, just starting to boil. So to balance these things, one of the things that I very intentionally do is I don't go for the A+. In 11th grade, when I had that click, I always wanted to push for the A+. And if it took me 40 hours, say 40 hours to study for an A, it would take me 75 hours to study for the A+. And so I quit having to reach the goal of A+, and I'm very content with an A- maybe. And as long as I don't do anything bad, but if it's good, I'm happy with it. And so I have more time to do the other things. I'm a manic list maker. And sometimes I use Covey's matrix of is it important, urgent, et cetera, or not.
Oh, yeah. And
when I'm with my kids, I am 100% absolutely with my kids, and that's their focus. If I'm at work, I'm 100% at work. If I'm in the woods climbing a mountain, I'm doing that. So I really tried to get the distractions out and not think about the other 2 things in my life when I'm doing one of the 3 major components: work, family, and, bettering myself. So And from time to time, I'll wake up earlier if I have to.
So, it's funny, what you talked about, rather than going for that A plus, going for the A minus or, whatever. Are you familiar with how, Tim Ferriss, he coined the term minimally effective dosage?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So when I read that, I was like, why did I not come up with that word? Because that's the way I live life. Not all aspects, but definitely in studying and a few other places. So, it's funny. I actually do the same thing for anyone that works for me. I ask them, like, hey, if you're not 100% here and you're off somewhere else, like if you're thinking about your children or relationship or riding a motorcycle or whatever it is, go out and do that, because that's where your mind's at. I'm not going to get out of you the 100% that I want and need. And it's funny, once at first people are like, ooh, I don't know if I can do that. But when they do, they come back, and not only do you get the 100%, you probably get like 110% because, you just gave them so much more joy and took that anxiety away from them, because now they're like, wow, I can have a life here. Obviously there's a balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to have them there 40 hours a week or whatever, but still there is a balance. But I think it's, I'm on board with everything that you've said. So what about, and you did talk about balance a bit earlier, just a moment ago, but how do you do that? You've got all this stuff going on. You've got all these grand adventures. You've got this family. A lot of people that listen to the show, they'll write me and they're like, I just don't have the time in the day to do this.
Yep.
How do you do it?
Yep, and definitely the focus one is another one. Is the most important is focusing so intently on what I'm on. And I gave up a few things in my life to know. I thought to myself, what are a few things that I spend a lot of time doing that aren't contributing towards my success? And one was listening to music while I drive my car. So I absolutely gave that up. When I have people in the car, I do it. But if I'm alone, I am doing one of two things: no sound, and I'm thinking about my business, or I'm listening to some sort of improvement, whether it's, The Richest Man in Babylon on CD type thing, or MP3, or a podcast, right. Something that's making me better. I can be thinking about what I want. And the next one was drinking. I said to myself, do you know what? This isn't contributing towards where I want to go. And this isn't for everybody, by the way. But for me, I decided, you know what? Until my company makes X amount of money, I'm not going to drink anything. And because what I thought that would allow me to do, which it has, is it would allow me to put any energy spent while drinking into pushing myself to better myself.
Right.
And another thing I do almost every morning. I don't know. Have you heard of the Code of the Extraordinary Mind? Vishen Lakhiani?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so he's got this book called The Code of Extraordinary Mind, and it's a little bit, there's quite a bit of a humanistic bent to it, but it's basically that our minds are extraordinary. The society has put a lot of BS rules on us that people live blindly, and we should question these rules. So he's got a lot of things like that. One of the things he's got, it's called the 6-phase meditation, and it's a guided meditation of 15 minutes. And every day there are 6 components to it. And so I spend my 15 minutes doing this. And the first component is compassion, just loving, starting with yourself to your neighbor, to everybody in the world. The next is gratitude, just being thankful for everything, starting with your job to yourself to whatever you got going on. Then forgiveness, forgiving anybody that you might need to forgive. And this is the one that's interesting, because I find myself mad at my wife because I have to do the dishes, It's,
Right.
And so sometimes I'm doing the dishes one night particularly, and just feeling a resentment for my wife that, why am I doing this tonight? And then the next day I do this meditation, and it's almost like feeling domino chips lift off of my shoulders that was so ridiculous. I can't wait to do dishes tonight.
Right.
And so there's forgiveness. And then the next one is imagining your perfect future 3 years into the future, and imagine above your wildest dreams of how good that's going to be in 3 years. And then your perfect day tomorrow. And then the last one is just allow God's blessing to come down and, give you encouragement and blessing for anything you need to do that day. And so that little 15 minutes, I'm pretty convinced, gives me an extra 2 hours a day of productivity. Don't know exactly how or why, but I've seen an objective change since I've been doing it. I started that about a year ago.
Well, I think just, not that I'm trying to psychoanalyze or, go over the whole meditation thing here, but, like go back to like getting things done. When you first get into a productivity process, your first step is to write everything down in your head. Right. Everything, all your to-do list, all your tasks, everything that you can. And that relieves so much anxiety because you don't have to remember. It's not all these cogs in their head trying to remember all this stuff. So if you go back to the meditation that you just talked about, you have all these anxieties or, I had to do dishes last night. And it's almost like you're building this wall now between you and your wife because it's an unspoken anger or whatever. Maybe anger is too harsh of a word, but it's an unspoken wall that you're starting to build. And every day it sounds like you're tearing that down and you're releasing all that negative energy, and you're not spending brain cycles to, your subconscious isn't having to think about that stuff. You're getting rid of it first thing in the morning. So I like that. I think that's a pretty awesome thing. So I wrote that down as a good book to get.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting one. And then the gratitude thing, I can't think it was, I don't know, Emily, one of your guests a while ago that you mentioned you have a gratitude board in your kitchen.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's genius.
It's great. Like, we wipe it off at the end of the week. That way, starting Sunday night, we can, and maybe not every Sunday night, but, we go through and just like, hey, what are we, grateful for right now? And the whole family uses it. And I'm like, hey, what does that mean? And, daughter will say something or my wife will say something because, there's so many things that happen throughout the day that sometimes we forget to share those stories, but it'll be up on the board. Or when I'm sitting there stuck doing dishes, I can look over because it's, a few feet away and I'm like, oh, cool. Hey, tell me about this today. Yeah. So
nice.
But the whole doing dishes thing, I think it's, Buddhism, they always talk about whatever task that you're doing, just, be thankful for it and see if there's a message in it. As you're doing dishes, what message can you get from doing the dishes? Like, it might be like tonight. Yeah, I cooked dinner and my wife was like, all right, let me help. And I'm like, no, please go off, go meditate, go do something else. You are not allowed to help. And that gave me so much joy tonight. Now, some other night, I'm going to say, no, I don't want to do anything with food. I'm just going to starve tonight because I don't want to cook. So, there's a balance and you got to figure that stuff out. But yeah, always trying to find the positive.
I love that, Tom. I'm right there with you. Same exact thing.
So, I'm really curious now. So you already kind of touched on something that you're working on right now. But what about just, I don't know, like if you go into like, physical health or financial or family, like relationships, time management. It sounds like you've got a lot of the stuff pretty good locked down. Is there anything there that you're kind of struggling with or that you want to get to the next level?
Kind of. So my wife and I made a decision. So she was a doctor of pharmacy. She did research pharmacy at the VA hospital here in Los Angeles, in West Los Angeles.
Okay.
And so we've got a kid entering 7th and a kid entering 6th grade. And so we made a decision that we're going to take a giant leap of faith without a giant safety net and have her quit her job. So we have to look at money in an entirely new way now that we have a big chunk not there anymore. And so we've looked into David Ramsey's stuff. We're taking a Dave Ramsey course and it's teaching us how to manage, with less. So that's one of the biggest changes recently. That was literally, a few weeks ago.
Oh, wow. All right. So you're still swimming in the pool that you just tipped your toe in.
Exactly.
That's awesome. That's great. So if you don't mind me asking, why did you guys make that decision?
She said to me something. She entertained the idea of stopping working. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense at all. That's crazy. Look at this. You're so successful. You're good at what you do. There's the money that comes in, which is X and really good. And then you've taking risks without a safety net. Finally, when I want to take a risk without a safety net, you don't want me to. And then she said, if I'm 55 or 60 years old and our kids aren't doing really well, and I say to myself, I worked full time while they were in junior high and high school, I'm never going to forgive myself. So I said, okay, there you go. You're right.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So she said that in about May, and her last day was, I think, last day in September.
Wow. Well, congratulations. I definitely, that's something I try to live my life by. When I make a decision, I try to make sure that, okay, based on all the facts that I have with me right now, will I have any regret? Because I don't want to be 50, 60, 70 and have regret. Obviously 10 years from now, I'm like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have made that decision, but I didn't have those facts then. So yeah. But, because you hear about a lot of these people, in their last years of life, and all they do, they're like, I wish I would have kissed the girl. I wish I would have done this, right? Because they have all this regret. And I'm like, that's not going to be me. I'm going to go climb those mountains, ride that motorcycle, maybe go to Africa.
And Tom, just you being aware of that, you're ahead of the game in a big fashion.
Totally. Yeah. Well, Erik, I'm loving where this is going, but I want to kind of get to some of the wrap-up questions here. So you've touched on quite a lot, and people are probably like, "Whoa, hold on," drinking from a fire hose. So I'm out here in this world cruising. I just happen to come across this podcast, and I'm listening to you, and the story about Africa, and where you're at right now. And this person, I'm at a crossroads in my life, trying to figure out what's my next step, and I'm completely lost. I don't know where to go. What would you tell that person?
I would say definitely find some people. Doesn't have to be so. Find some people that share similar either interests or goals. Set the goals. The first thing would be to set your goals. Set your this week goal. 6-month goal, 1-year goal, 5-year plan. So set down a goal, and then who can you surround yourself by that would help you get to that goal? If you have at all the means, I would find, maybe some online study course from a successful coach, maybe, whether it be, if it's a business that you want to go into that. And one of the things, or it can be just a friend who happens to be really good in an area that you want to improve into. Meet who they hang out with a little bit. So I'm flirting with an idea that I want to develop called Pyramid of Mentors. And if you want to name I would put God at the very, very top of the pyramid. Then you've got somebody like Tony Robbins. Then you've got a Brennan Bouchard. Then you've got, down to the road to my buddy David Brownlee, who's a great, public speaker and coach, but he's not, at the level of a Brendan Bouchard.
Right.
And so connect with these people and learn everything you can from them. I put money into personal development as well, and I've never regretted it.
Yeah, I don't know where I read the stat at. I don't know if it was Dave Ramsey but it was definitely someone in that realm. I mean, it could have been Napoleon Hill for all I remember, but like 10% of your income should be towards self-development every year.
Yeah.
Especially, I'm in technology, so especially now, in 6 months, how fast technology changes, you get left behind if you don't always improve your skill set in that realm. So
absolutely.
Well, I'll make sure I put all this stuff in the show notes, but what's the best way to connect with you?
So there's www. 3 of them. So Erik Seversen, my name, and it's Erik, not C. So Erik, and Seversen's with an E in at the end. So it's kind of funny that I have a website where my name can be misspelled twice. So erikseversen.com. The email is the same, Erik with a K at erikseversen.com. And also I'm going to have a page just for your guests, which will be erikseversen.com/ninja. And on that page, they could see some pictures from Africa. They can some downloadable things. I've actually written a book that I'm really excited about. It's the working title right now is Ordinary to Extraordinary. Supposed to come out in February, March timeline. And so anybody from any of your listeners can get that book for 50% off. And I think it's going to be $14.95. So half of that.
Okay.
You can download a few chapters from it. In fact, I think I might have a chapter that highlights that episode in Africa when the guy had the gun in my mouth. And so, so there will be a lot of things for your listeners on that site. And a huge one is I believe in helping people helps yourself. So I want to help as many people as possible. If any of your listeners wanted to have a 15-minute consultation from something about language learning, about presenting for a job or for a public speaking thing, or almost anything else, I will have a free 15-minute consultation, and there's not going to be any sales pitch of, hey, you need me for this as well. It's just a 15-minute talk to see if there's anything that I can help you with.
Oh, cool. That's, thank you so much for that, Erik. I think, you and I, and obviously I think anyone that's been on the show and that listens is definitely on the same path. And, I feel like when you try to, when you do help people, help them try to, see blind spots or get them to that next level or whatever, it is really rewarding. I mean, you become the student, that's that whole proverb, the teacher becomes the student.
Yep.
Well, so I think you've already kind of just touched on this, but are you working on anything right now? You've got this book coming out. What else are you working on right now?
So yeah, the book's been very exciting. In fact, you mentioned what can somebody else do? Something somebody could do to really energize their life is start to write something and build a website, even if it's one of the free website platforms. It's a way to kind of look at yourself and have to show things from yourself. And so the book is a huge project. The other one is the company Language Link, which is the mission is to help either ESL students, mainly students who are traveling abroad to study English, to be successful with their language study and in life. And a big clientele from that is also somebody who is in a company, a professional who needs to improve their English. And I also love to do public speeches. I've done quite a few for like graduation ceremonies and things like that. And so, I just love that. That's it.
Okay. No, that's awesome. That's great. It's funny. I've got a number of friends that have gone to Asia for ESL. They've gone over there.
Awesome.
Yeah, it is. But it's funny. I've not really considered that until you brought it up, because I've had another guest on that has done something similar. So now I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Yeah.
Well, Erik, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would love to bring up before we close out?
No, I think we've got it. I just, I love talking with you. It's funny because hearing your voice on your podcast so many times, I feel like I'm talking with an old friend, and and it's been great.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed this experience with you, and we could have gone 50 different ways after reading your bio, but I think the Africa story was awesome one to start out with. So thank you for your time, Erik.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I sure appreciated it, and I loved meeting you and doing this.
What an impressive guy, Erik. We covered all kinds of things there, from, his average middle-class childhood upbringing to, that awesome story he shared with us about going to Africa. But, he went Africa to Thailand, France, all over. He's been to like 49 of the 50 countries, I believe. He was wanted to go into the black belt and, be like Bruce Lee when he went to Thailand. And then he ended up teaching ESL because he found out he wasn't that great at Muay Thai. He shared a lot of awesome, great things with us. One of the things really is just about mastering time and your mind. And I loved a lot of the hacks that he shared with us. What were some of the key takeaways for you?
Thanks for listening to the UpRev Ninja podcast with your host, Tom Hudson. Navigate to our website at uprev.ninja today, where you will find additional resources to help you discover the best version of you. While you're there, join our newsletter and join the discussion on your favorite social media platforms. We've got some awesome guests lined up to share with us how they are becoming the best versions of themselves. Again, thank you for listening. Now it's time to go out and uprev your life.
If you haven't, please head on over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review for the show. By doing so, this helps the show get noticed by more listeners and help spread the word of how to discover the best version of yourself. Also, if you have any feedback about the show or a guest that you would like, please go to my website, https://uprev.ninja, and contact me. This week's review comes from Tata MS4U. Fascinating concept. I found these episodes to be very interesting. And what a fascinating way to reverse engineer their story. Great job.